Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to the conversation. So today, we're going to be talking about the trade that didn't go down and what could have been for the Toronto Raptors, and could the Raptors have actually been on their way to a consecutive finals appearance? So let's talk about it. So I want to talk about, should the Raptors have traded Pascal Siakam for Paul George to keep Kawhi Leonard? So that's what I want to get into today. So we all know the story, what happened last season. We know what transpired in the Eastern Conference. The Raptors acquired Kawhi Leonard for one season, sort of like it was purgatory. The San Antonio Spurs sent Kawhi Leonard to go play basically in another country because they felt like, he didn't want to be a part of the organization. And he forced his way out due to some, mishandlings with his injuries, etc. So Kawhi Leonard was shipped to go play with the Toronto Raptors. And the interesting thing about that is, when he went to go play for that team, a lot of people knew that he wanted to go play with the Lakers. Not the Lakers. He wanted to go home to LA. That had been the whole talk. So prior to him getting to the Toronto Raptors, a lot of people had this sort of sentiment that, guess what? We think that he's only going to be here for a year. He's only passing through. No one really saw, the Raptors going to the finals and ultimately winning the NBA championship. A lot of teams picked the Bucks. A lot of people picked the Bucks. A lot of people picked the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of people picked the Boston Celtics to come out of the East. Very few analysts picked the Toronto Raptors to make it to the finals, or at least, beat out those teams and ultimately win. So when they did that, it was a shock to a lot of people's systems. And when Kawhi Leonard ended up going to the finals last year and actually performing and putting up one of the most historic runs for the Toronto Raptors and actually winning finals MVP with a new team, no chemistry virtually with this new organization, coming off of an injury and then going to this new organization winning a championship, it was a sensational thing to happen. So, the Raptors and a lot of teams were clamoring for his services in this, in the past off season, and a lot of teams were trying to see where he was going to go. And, a lot of teams were actually trying to gain his services, even like the Los Angeles Lakers. But going back to the end of Kawhi Leonard's decision to not play with the Toronto Raptors, a lot of people said, hey, you know what? It was just him wanting to go home. And Kawhi Leonard himself said that he wanted to go home. Now, just fresh off of his return to Toronto to go actually collect his ring, they asked Kawhi, leading up to the moments leading up to the game, they were like, how seriously did you actually consider to stay with the Raptors? And he was like, I really waited a lot, and there was a really big chance of me staying back. And a lot of people just assumed from that point forward that the guy wanted to go home. But it turns out that Kawhi Leonard, in fact, wanted to stay, but he wanted to stay under one condition, and it's the same condition he gave to the Clippers. He told the Clippers, as he told the Raptors, get me Paul George, and I'll stay with you. That was his ultimatum to the Raptors. Now, the Raptors, who have, a sensational GM in Masai Ujiri, who had constructed these teams that were always going to the Eastern Conference Finals, ultimately losing, is the same guy that brought in Kawhi Leonard, that traded away DeMar DeRozan, that took a gamble on this team. And, he was the one that was reluctant to pull the trigger. He did not want to trade Pascal Siakam for Paul George. Now, last season, Pascal Siakam, wasn't an all-star. But last season, he averaged 17 points a game. He got you, he shot 55% from the field. He shot 36% from the three-point line. Got you 7 rebounds last season and got you about 3 assists, right? So he was a developing player, and you had seen his progress because the year before that, he averaged 7 points. So Masai Ujiri, I think, saw the upside in keeping Pascal Siakam. Now, this season, he's averaging 24.5 points a game, 8.4 rebounds, and 3.6 assists. If we look at the standings for the Toronto Raptors, they're currently in the fifth seed in the Eastern Conference, although it's early in the season. Now, let's juxtapose those numbers with Paul George last season, because remember, we're going off of the performance. Masai Ujiri is going off of what he thinks can happen, and there's Paul George of what we know can happen. So last season, Paul George averaged 28 points a game, shot 44% from the field goal. From the floor, 38% from the three-point line, 84% from the free throw line. Got you 8.2 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and got you 2.2 steals a game and was one of the finalists for league's MVP. So, what I want to address is, do you think that Masai Ujiri made the right decision to keep Pascal Siakam? And it's not an easy question, guys, because you already lost Kawhi, right? And you know that Paul George is an LA kid, and ultimately, somewhere down the road, he may want to go back to play in LA. That may be something that he wants to do. Now, you have another thing that Masai might have been taken into consideration is that Pascal Siakam is only 25 years old, whereas Paul George, I believe, is 29 years old. So Pascal is actually 4 years younger, so he can actually give you more years, theoretically, of excellence moving forward, because Paul George is an older player, although he's still very young. He's under 30 years old. Kawhi Leonard is 28. So the question is, did he make the right decision? Now, in my opinion, I think he should have traded for Paul George, and I'll tell you the reason why. Number one, you already know what you're getting when you get Paul George. That's the first thing. You already know that he is probably the second best two-way player in all of basketball. He's a bona fide scorer. He's an efficient scorer, and you can do a lot of creative things with your offense with him because he's a great catch and shooter, whereas Pascal Siakam is more of a slasher. So I believe, Paul George gives you more options on offense, and in games where, or in situations where Kawhi Leonard may want to load manage, Paul George can carry the scoring burden of a team. And you saw that last season with the sensational numbers he was able to put up from the offensive from the offensive end. So if it was me, I would have traded for Paul George to keep Kawhi to ensure that we were at least going to go to the NBA Finals and be able to compete against anyone in the finals coming out of the West, because you already know that the team you had currently can beat the Bucks. Yes, sure, Giannis is going to improve, but now you're adding another bona fide all-star next to Kawhi Leonard. It's no longer just Kyle Lowry, who performed really well in the finals, but now you're adding a proven commodity, perennial all-star. And if it was me, I would have made that trade. Although I'm going to just say that Masai Ujiri knows a little bit more about basketball than I do, so I'm not going to say that I'm a smarter basketball mind than he is. But if I'm giving you my own personal opinion, I would have pulled off the trade to get Paul George to ensure that at least for the next 3-4 years, we're giving ourselves a legitimate shot to win the title, not just to get to the NBA championship. So what I want to know from you guys is, if you were in the position of Masai Ujiri of the Raptors, would you have traded for Paul George, or would you have kept Pascal Siakam and essentially let Kawhi Leonard go? That's what I want to know from you guys in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think. I think moving forward, as we watch Pascal Siakam continue to develop, it's going to be a story, and it's going to be one of those things where we look back and say, I wonder what if, if the Raptors don't go to the finals again, or they never win another championship, we can always look back 5-6 years from now and wonder if the Raptors made the right decision. So that's what I want to know from you guys. Again, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to be notified when all of our newest content comes out. Once again, this is Charles here from DreamersPro. Wishing you guys an amazing day. Peace.